Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. I don't know if you noticed this on Friday, but I wasn't here on Friday. I was out of town. So Friday's episode was in fact pre-recorded. If you go back and watch, you'll hear me slip up a bunch mentioning yesterday, whatever, because I recorded it on Thursday. And I usually am really good about that. I'm usually good at pretending like it's the day that it is, but or the day that it's posted. But I don't think anybody really cares if I pre-record them. I don't think anybody really cares if I miss a day. Or I mean, I think some of you do. I'll get messages if I miss a day. But regardless, I wasn't here Friday. I was in New York City, which I had not been to New York in at least 25 years. I want to say I was in my teens, so probably closer to 30 years since the last time I was there. I, I, I feel like I went there later as an adult, maybe, but I honestly don't really have a lot of recollection of that. So I, I definitely went there in the 90s. So we went to New York City because my daughter is considering uh, a drama academy there. She wants to do theater. She wants to do acting. So she was interested in this school that we went to, and they were having an open house kind of. It was for accepted students. She got accepted to the school, number one, which is cool because this school only accepts like less than 20% of their applicants get accepted. So she got accepted. They had a little like luncheon talk kind of thing. So we went for that. Drove up on Friday. We stayed in Newark because I wasn't trying to pay Manhattan prices. So we stayed in Newark, New Jersey, and took the train in. That was awesome. It was by far the best. We stayed at a DoubleTree that's like there's a skywalk that's about a minute away from the Penn Station. The Penn Station's like directly across the street. Newark Penn Station is directly across the street. So we stayed there because it was only like less than $200 a night. The train was, I think, $30 round trip for all three of us. So $10 a day to go into the city, and then we took subway around town and saw everything we wanted to see. So Friday we went, and we just decided to hurry up, get dressed, and go downtown because we had booked tickets for Hadestown, and we wanted to go find everything and make sure we knew how the subway worked and all that sort of stuff because I hadn't been there in a long time. The last time my kid was there, you still used Metro cards. This time, it was just tap to pay, go, just keep going. So that was cool. So we got downtown and we had some dinner at a little. We found a place, ate. It was okay, and then we went and saw Hadestown. And Hadestown was phenomenal. I mean, just unbelievably phenomenal. The only complaint I have is just how packed they make those theaters. The poor guy in front of me, if he'd have leaned back, his head would have just been in my knee. There was nothing I could do about it. Like, they're just sitting that close. I tried my best, but that was tough. But the show was unbelievably awesome. It was a really phenomenal show. They did an amazing job. And that was our Friday. And then Saturday we went into town early so we could go do the school visit. We did that. And then we just did a bunch of stuff around town. See the World Trade Center, go to Times Square, eat hot dogs, take lots of pictures. She wanted to have kind of a senior picture type event. So she dressed, well, she didn't dress up. She wore normal stuff. And we took pictures in Times Square. Just did New York stuff. Went shopping, all the kind of normal things you do when you're in a place like that. For me, and then we got back to the hotel at like 10 o'clock that night, and then we yesterday just woke up and drove back. It's about a 6-hour drive from here, so it's not a terrible adventure. That's how long it takes me to get to Gen Con, so it's the same distance to Indianapolis as it is to New York for me. Not a big deal. I would be willing to make that trip multiple times a year, like, no problem. You want to go to New York to see a show? Let's go to New York. I'll drive over there. So the interesting part for me, I tried to have this talk with Em, and I don't think she quite understood what I was trying to say. Maybe she did. I don't know. I shouldn't speak for her. Being there as an adult, being there as a 44-year-old man who I've now spent a lot of my life in cities. I've spent lots of time in cities in Hawaii, Indianapolis, Columbus. I've spent a lot of time in Atlanta. I mean, just all over for conventions, whatnot. Miami. I spent a lot of time in cities, and I felt when we were in Manhattan, we were. I mean, even like Central Park, Uptown, Midtown, Downtown, all those places. It was just like, eh. It's just a city. Like there's nothing special about it to me. I remember going there as a kid and just being completely overwhelmed because at that time I had been to Pittsburgh a few times. I forgot to mention Pittsburgh on the cities I've spent lots of time in. Um, I had been to Pittsburgh a couple of times, but it wasn't overwhelming. This was like when I went to Manhattan as a kid, it was like, oh my gosh, this is just way too much. But this time it was like, just I don't know. It was. I don't want to say it was annoying, but like there wasn't really anything for me there. The play was amazing. The hot dogs were amazing. Um, Times Square, I could never go there again. I would be super happy to never visit that place again. But it was, Central Park. Of course, we went in the winter, so Central Park was just this barren landscape. I think it would have looked way more impressive had, when you get into Central Park, it would obscure the view of the city. In the winter, you go to Central Park and all the buildings are still visible because there's no leaves on any of the trees. So I think that would have been a different experience in the winter, in the summer. But it was just, it was just another city that I was having to walk around in or ride the train in. I mean, for me, honestly, the subway was probably the most interesting part of the adventure besides Broadway, because it was like, we don't have that at Pittsburgh. We don't have that in Indianapolis. We don't have that in Columbus. Like, it's a unique kind of experience to get on those trains and try to figure out where you're headed and where you're going. And so it was interesting, to see the city in a different way than the last time I was there. I also feel like the last time I was there, it was like 90% taxis that were just bumper to bumper, horns honking constantly. Yes, there were horns, but I felt like the traffic in downtown areas, even near like Times Square, was not that like backed up. And maybe it's just time of the year. Maybe it was a Saturday, whatever. But it just felt like traffic was. I wouldn't have been afraid to drive down there. Like there was nothing. I would have drove. If we found a decent place to stay in the city, I would have drove in. No big deal. It wasn't that scary. As a kid, it was terrifying. But it was a good trip. It was a really fun time. I personally don't have like, anything other than going to see shows. I don't really have a reason to go there. My kid wants to live there. She's sold on the idea of being a big city person. That's fine. Go live there. Like, go try it out. Give it a shot. For me, I don't get it. Like, it's not for me. I like having space. I like having quiet. I don't need all of that noise and distraction. And I like the convenience of being able to get in my car and go where I want to go in an expected amount of time. I think that's a very different story if you live any place near a city. It could be a half an hour, it could be 2 hours, so you never know, right? Here, I kind of have an idea. But it was a good trip. It really was. And we'll probably, at least Em and I will go back. I mean, I would love to be able to take the kids if we can afford it, but I think we're going to go back and see some more shows. We had both were like, if this had been our trip, this was my kid's trip. This was for her. Let's do the things that you want to do. If it had been our trip, I think we would have booked more shows, probably seen 2 shows, probably figured out some places we want to hit. Like we would have loved to have seen the New York City Library. We would have loved to have found like the special coffee shop to go to or whatever. And we would have hit those spots and that would have been our day. And maybe done some walking just to, see some sights or whatever. But it wasn't our trip. We did what my kid wanted to do, and we had a good time. We did go to Rockefeller Center and we went to the Lego store or the Nintendo store, both of which I was pretty disappointed with. Like, they just have normal stuff that you can get anywhere. Like, there was nothing special in those stores. Other than the Lego store had big displays of stuff. Those were neat to look at. The other thing was we talked about Rockefeller Center. It's really weird being there in person and seeing this thing that on TV and in movies seems like this giant magical place in the middle of the city, and it's just a rinky-dink skating rink. Like, it's no bigger than the skating rink we have here, just in the okay. Like, it's nothing special at all. But on TV and movies, and it makes it seem just like this giant place, and it's just like, it's not really anything special. Interesting perspective, 30 years apart. Interested in seeing more shows, though. Thank you for being here, as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know sounds smart is procure. It is a verb meaning to seek and eventually gain ownership of something. My book dealer recently procured at considerable expense at first edition of Great Expectations for our library. Procure, P-R-O-C-U-R-E. We use that word a lot in the military. I'm assuming it's not that uncommon of a word. Procurement is a thing, right?